please rise to the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome everyone this morning. Just as a reminder, please silence your cell phones. Meeting documents are available for review down on the end next to Commissioner Karski. And Carol can help you if you need a listening device this morning. So that takes us to routine business. I'd consider a motion to approve the agenda.
So move. Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next item is to approve the commission minutes from January 16th, 2018.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next item, bills to be paid in the amount of $609,669.77.
Move for approval.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. That takes us to reports. I believe Jamie Phelps is here to provide the Human Services 2017 annual and perhaps the fourth quarter report. Jamie.
Hi, Jamie Phelps. Good morning.
Good morning.
Did you have any questions on the report? First of all, I provided it so that it could be reviewed by the commission, and it goes through and compares the 2017 to the 2016, so year over year, some of the stats with the different programs and services that we provide.
No questions.
Okay. Any questions?
Nope.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Okay, the next item is personnel actions. I'd consider a motion to approve the routine personnel actions.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Next item is application for abatement. There are none. Notices and requests. There are none. Planning and zoning notices. There are none. And petition for compromise of lien. There are none. That takes us to public comment. Is there anyone here for public comment today? I don't see anybody rushing to the microphone. So that takes us to our public hearing and second reading to consider an ordinance amendment 1703 addressing accessory buildings. Kevin Hookman. Morning.
Kevin Hookman, County Planning Department. As you stated, this is an ordinance amendment in front of you regarding accessory structures in the rural area of the county. The Planning Commission requested several months ago for staff to review the size of accessory buildings, because currently in the county, in a subdivision of more than 4 parcels, an accessory building is limited to 1,200 square feet in size without a conditional use. And conditional use permits for this request for larger than 1,200 square feet is one of the most common requests in the county for conditional use permits. I have a little PowerPoint just to show a little bit of how our requests are broken down over the last 3 years. So the county has 3 different joint ordinances with 2 different joint jurisdictional areas. The county had 88 requests, then the joint area of Sioux Falls and the county had 15 more, and the joint area between the county and Del Rapids had 5 more, just accessory building requests. So the Planning Commission was looking at this as a kind of a way to reduce some of that burden or some of the workload of the Planning Commission to review these requests. This breaks down the size request of all those permits that were requested. So the new proposal would raise it from 1,200 to a tiered system that would go off of the size of the parcel, as well as to allow larger buildings the larger the parcel it is. This breaks it down a little bit to those size requests. For 1 acre or less, a structure can be 1,600 square feet. For 1 acre to 3 acres, the structure would be able to be 2,400 square feet. And for 3 acres or more, a structure can be 3,600 square feet. And all those would be without a conditional use permit, with just a building permit. And you can see here that taking out some of those would take out a great deal of our request based on the areas. And then this final slide would be to show that this is a common request and it's commonly approved. Out of our permits, 100 of them have been approved. 4 of them were approved with a slightly smaller area than what was requested, and there's only been 3 denials or withdrawals of the permit. So, this item was heard in front of the Planning Commission on November 27th. The Planning Commission recommended approval of the ordinance changes. And now it is your turn to take that and approve or deny or take action on the item. So, is there any questions?
Commissioner Karski?
Kevin, quick question, I guess, is this change only applies to 4 different districts, and I'm pretty certain I know what they are, but just for the record, can you, A1, RC, RR, and R1, can you kind of break that down so everybody knows what that is?
Sure. So the ordinance requires that the larger accessory building, if it's in a rural subdivision, it requires a conditional use a rural zoning district. So anything that is zoned rural, all the different classifications, there's a few different. So that would be one class. Then in the A1 agricultural, the RC recreational, are then the next 2 that are broken down. And in those 2 districts, the A1 and RC, that would only apply if they're in a subdivision in those zoning districts. So as a subdivision defined as a subdivision more than 4 parcels grouped together.
So A1 would be what?
A1 would be agricultural zoning.
Any ag?
Any ag subdivision, yep.
Okay.
There's a lot of rural subdivisions that are A1 agricultural zoned still.
Okay. So if it's 4 parcels within a certain area, that's where it's going to apply.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Kevin? Okay, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to speak in favor of this ordinance change? I think I recognize everyone here. Is there anyone that would like to speak against this ordinance change? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
It's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so that takes us to item 11. Consider a motion to authorize a $10,000 transfer from the museum store fund to the museum enterprise fund in accordance with the 2018 budget.
Good morning. Bill Hoskins, Director of the Siouxland Heritage Museums. This is an action that would transfer $10,000 from the museum store fund, which is a revenue fund that accounts for revenues and expenses associated with the operation of museum store, to the museum special enterprise fund. And the enterprise fund is where today we budget all our educational programming, and this money would be used specifically, or was identified in the budget, to support educational programming and the marketing of that educational programming. And although it was included in the 2018 budget, the state auditors, I'm informed, require a commission action to authorize the auditor's office to make the balance transfer from the store fund to the enterprise fund. And that's what I'm asking you to do.
Any questions? Commissioner Karski.
Basically, you're taking the profits from the museum store and plugging them back into your program.
Right. And they're accounted for in the enterprise fund. And yeah, we're using the profits from the store, a revenue fund, to operate our educational programs.
Any other questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
Move for approval.
Second?
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That takes us to item 12. Consider a motion to supplement the Human Services budget, ASN 21137, in the amount of $19,187.50, the second half of the 2018 EFSP Emergency Food and Shelter Program Fund allocation. Well, that was a mouthful.
Again.
Jamie, good morning.
Human Services, Jamie Phelps. And just wanted to clarify on the reports. This is the main reason why I was here today was the EFSP and the county cemetery contract and the changing of the text in that. So the reports, I provided a detailed summary with that. So hopefully went through and explained in detail each one of those reports. I didn't want to spend your whole morning up here. I didn't come plan to do a presentation on all the reports, but didn't want to take up your whole morning with that. Thought I'd focus on these items, but I certainly, if you have any questions or comments on the reports, I certainly would want to answer those and address those. So just to let you know that. So the EFSP, we do need the motion to this would be phase 34, and we would need the motion to go ahead and supplement the budget with the second half of the grant, because it always comes in 2 payments each year. And we've been up before to supplement the first half, and this would be the second half, that $19,187.50. This grant is going again this year to provide supplement direct services at the Bishop Dudley Hospitality House, that shelter out there. And as you know, when that shelter came about after the first year, we've seen a savings in our motel budget of about $80,000, and each year successively after that, we've had a savings in that motel budget. So they've made a huge impact on what we spend in terms of emergency shelter in the community. And being as we get that grant, we're one of the few jurisdictions in the state that get the grant sent directly to us each year. And we knew that was a huge priority, was emergency shelter in the community, and they would be serving each year. They've been serving extra people, more and more people, and they've been at full capacity most of this year. It's been a big stretch, so we wanted to help them out, prioritize the needs in the community and use that funding where it's best needed, and that's why we chose Bishop Dudley, and that's been going well. It takes minimal amount of paperwork in terms of administratively to handle this when we're spending it out that way per diem at the shelter. I would estimate maybe a few days of work spread out over the entire year, just a few days. Now, if we get audited, it's going to probably about double that time, but we don't. Usually, that's once every 3, 4, 5 years you get an audit, and then you got to go through and get extra paperwork together and that type of thing and submit it. So that does take extra time, but as long as it remains this way, it's not a lot administratively to handle. It does a lot of good for the community and that type of thing. Did you have any questions on it?
Commissioner.
Just a
Monaghan.
real simple question, Jamie. Why can't we just distribute that in one lump sum once a year rather than do it twice a year?
Well, this time we're under a real time crunch because the feds were running behind, and we just now got the money, just the past few weeks here, and here the deadline for spending is the end of January. so we kind of was in a crunch. We needed to get it supplemented quickly, but we only had the first half of the money that hit the account, so we weren't able to kind of supplement the whole thing right then, but yet we're in this crunch to get it done before the end of the month. Everything has been running behind, and as a matter of fact, I haven't even been able to submit the final report for phase 33 yet, the final report to the national board, because they haven't put that up on the national site to complete yet. They plan on having that, since everything's running behind, they plan on having the final reports for phase 33 and 34 together now, and you just do them all at once and that type of thing. But it's because they're running behind and we're in a big time crunch, and typically I can wait, if we've got time to spend it out, I can wait until both checks hit the account and then just do the full supplement all at once. But this was kind of like a special situation because of that running behind thing. So,
Any other questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
So move.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next item is consider a motion to authorize the vice chair to sign the updated professional services agreement between Minnehaha County and Dakota Cemetery Management in the amount of $5,200 annually to administer burials in the Minnehaha County Cemetery. Jamie?
Okay, so with this, that contract we originally had you approve a couple years ago. We started that in the beginning of 2016 there in January, and that was prior to when we had the policy to have everything, all contracts being reviewed by the state's attorney's office. So now that we have that, we brought it back through the state's attorney's office. It's been reviewed, and we've come up with some changes that they recommended in it here, which makes sense. Much of these things are styling and form changes and things of that nature, but there's a couple things that kind of stood out to me that were one item that stood out to me was that in the contract, and I give credit to Maggie in the state's attorney's office for catching this in the contract, but they had a 7-day turnaround time for that. They could just make they quit the contract basically, and then we'd only within 7-day notice, and we would have 7 days. I mean, I don't expect that they would ever do that, but in the event that would ever happen and come to fruition, then we would be stuck with 7 days trying to find somebody to replace them, and it wouldn't be easy. We would be in a bind. So I think that was a good catch, and we moved that over to 90 days. I think that's a good thing. That gives us sufficient time to get, if should anything ever happen like that, we would be able to get a replacement consultant in place on that, and that type of thing. And then the other thing was the consultant for Dakota Cemetery Management contract wanted a 4% increase for this past year due to staff increases that they had in their expenses for staff. And that amounted to $200, not a huge amount, but also wanted to bring that to your attention that our office had agreed to that with them and push that forward. So other than that, any questions on the changes or tweaks?
Any questions for Jamie? Okay, if not, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you very much.
Excellent, thank you. And again, any questions or comments you'd have on the reports, I would welcome those. So thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you. So that takes us to item 14, legislative update. Carol Muller.
Good morning, Commissioners. Carol Muller, Commission Office. Craig Dewey is back, left for Pier again this morning, and so I will be presenting his legislative update, and which he has so kindly provided to you. I want to highlight 3 specific bills that are discussed in there. One is Senate Bill 86, and that is one that has come through Minnehaha County. This is to revise certain requirements when a local unit of government sells surplus property through a real estate broker, which internally we've been referring to as the 90% bill. And Senator Deb Peters is the Senate Prime, and Representative Mark Willitson is the House Prime, and Craig has brought 37 other sponsors on board with this bill. The bill has been assigned to the Senate Local Government, and the hearing will take place tomorrow morning. And Commissioner Karski has kindly agreed that he will be representing the commission on this and will be traveling out, meeting up with Craig, who has already gone out there today. I want to reference House Bill 1076. This is one that is to authorize townships to use a tax levy, authorize townships to have the ability to use the tax levy for emergency medical services, specifically the ambulances. This is permissive language. It is not required language. The townships in Minnehaha County have very generously supported that, and we just want to make sure that everything's wrapped up nicely with the laws as to how they are going through and doing that. As we know, that the ambulance systems in Minnehaha County, the rural ones, truly do struggle with the amount of dollars that they need to find in order to keep their programs, which are primarily volunteer, up and running. So we're excited about doing that. The resolution on that will come forward on January 30th to go through and support that. It is to be in the House committee this week. We haven't heard for sure what that is scheduled for. A bill that we haven't discussed yet is Senate Bill 1. And Senate Bill 1 revises certain provisions regarding tax deed procurement. And it's very important for us to understand this bill and recognize why we're so concerned about it. The auditor and treasurer are opposed to this bill also. If enacted, Senate Bill 1 would require the county to take action against delinquent property taxpayers within 2 years instead of the 3 years that we currently have, and also require property to be seized within 3 years instead of the 6 years. This bill was brought forward as a result of a statewide committee called the Interim Committee on Workforce Housing. The result of this bill would increase the number of notices that the Treasurer's Office would have to send out by 3 or 4 times as many annually, and would result in the Commission taking action to potentially seize property with unpaid property taxes within 3 years instead of 6. The treasurer made the comment that most people are able to catch up with unpaid property taxes within 3 to 5 years, but this bill would reduce the window to 3 years, resulting in more people being removed from their homes and potentially having income-generating property, i.e. farmland, which would further reduce the ability of the landowner to pay taxes. So we're very concerned about that, recognize that this does a lot. The commissioners, you all know that in the fall of each year, you get a very short list of tax properties that to be sold because they've reached that 6-year limit. And you know when that comes through that every effort has been made to keep people in their homes, to get the property taxes caught up. There's a lot of work that's done on individual outreach in a variety of ways to help people move forward on that. Commissioner Karski.
This is being brought forth, like you said, by the Interim Committee on Workforce Housing. This seems totally contrary to that goal of creating or making affordable housing for,
There's a
working
concern with
class
that, and
people.
I will share that I sent Craig a text this morning and just said, when you're out there in Pierre this week, can you get a little bit more background as to why that was brought forward?
Yeah, that'd be interesting because it seems contradictory to their
Absolutely.
goal of, so. okay.
Absolutely. And we fully recognize that when you all have to make that decision about tax deeds, you take that very seriously. And you want to make sure that we've done everything possible. So I think there's a concern on Senate Bill 1.
Any other questions for Carol? Thank you very much. That takes us to the next item, item 15, liaison reports. Are there any liaison reports this morning? If not, takes us, Commissioner Karski?
Did you have I'm sorry, I was.
Yep, that takes us to new business, item 16.
New business, sorry, I was
That's
kind of
okay.
reading the other bills a little bit. Pay attention. Commissioner Heiberger and myself were invited by Commissioner Schmidt and Long from Lincoln County to go to Minneapolis, to Hennepin County, and meet with their county commissioners. And one of them, who Commissioner Schmidt serves on the board, and I apologize for not bringing his name, but he serves on the National County Officials Board. And basically, the purpose of the meeting would be to go up there to take a look at how multiple counties function around a large metropolitan area, and the collaboration of offices and work that can be done, and just to basically see it on a first-hand basis. So we will be using a little bit of our travel budget for a night in the Minneapolis area. So just as a kind of a heads up to the rest of the commission that'll be happening. That'll be February 15th. It was going to be the 14th, but I made them realize that some of us are married and we have Valentine's Day that day. So
Very wise. Any other new business? Thank you. That'll be interesting to hear what information you guys are able to bring back. 17, any old business this morning? Okay, well, that takes us to the end of the agenda. We have no executive committee today, so I'd
Move to
entertain a
adjourn.
motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone, for
Only
braving
7:30.
the snow and getting here this morning. Thank you.